The iPad pinged at 11:47 p.m., and that's when I knew my life was about to turn to shit. I was sitting in my loft above Vane Restoration, nursing a beer that had gone warm an hour ago, listening to the rain hammer against the industrial windows, the kind of rain that sounds like gravel on tin. Below me, the garage sat quiet for once. No air compressors hissing, no impact wrenches screaming, just the smell of motor oil and metal shavings drifting up through the floorboards. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The ping came from Keeley's iPad, the one she kept synced to her phone because she was always afraid of losing photos. I wasn't snooping. The damn thing just lit up on the coffee table, showing me a slideshow I definitely wasn't supposed to see. Napa Valley, sunset over vineyards. Keeley in a white sundress I'd never seen before, her smile so wide it looked like it might crack her face. And there, on her left hand, catching the golden light like a flare, a diamond the size of a headlight. Not from a girls' weekend, from a proposal. I set down my beer and stared at that screen until it went dark. Then I picked up my own phone and scrolled through our text thread from the past 4 days. Miss you, baby. Wine country is gorgeous. Can't wait to see you Sunday. Every word a lie. I didn't throw anything, didn't punch a wall. I just sat there in the dark, listening to the rain and feeling something cold settle in my chest, something that felt a lot like clarity. See, I'm not the kind of guy who falls apart. I work with my hands. I rebuild things that are broken. I take rusted-out muscle cars that most people would scrap and turn them into machines worth 6 figures. I understand how things fit together, and more importantly, I understand how to take them apart. Keeley thought she was so careful. She thought I was just the grease monkey boyfriend, too busy with carburetors and camshafts to notice she'd been pulling away for months. Later nights out, more work events, that new wardrobe she kept at her office because she didn't want it smelling like the garage. I heard her key in the lock at midnight. She came up the stairs with her weekend bag, still glowing with that California tan, and she didn't even try to hide the ring. Maybe she figured I'd already seen it. Maybe she just didn't care anymore. "Silas," she said, setting down her bag. "We need to talk." I stayed in my chair, one hand wrapped around that warm beer. "No need. It's all pretty clear." She blinked, thrown off her script. She'd probably practiced this in the mirror. The sympathetic face, the "it's not you, it's me" routine, the clean exit. "You saw," she said, "the iPad helpfully shared your engagement photos. Congratulations." She had the decency to look uncomfortable for about 3 seconds. Then something else flickered across her face. Relief, maybe, that she didn't have to pretend anymore. "His name is Preston," she said, like I'd asked. "Preston Whitmore. He's rich," I finished. "I get it, Keeley. Blue collar isn't cutting it for your Instagram aesthetic anymore." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it came out darker than I intended. "You've been living in my loft for 2 years, rent-free. Your name is on the lease. And you spent the weekend letting some trust fund asshole put a ring on your finger. But sure, let's talk about what's fair." She crossed her arms. "I was going to tell you." "When? After the wedding?" "Don't be dramatic, Silas. You knew this wasn't working. We haven't been happy in months." She wasn't wrong about that. But there's a difference between drifting apart and getting blindsided by engagement photos from wine country. "So what's the plan?" I asked. "You want your stuff tonight, or—" "I'm going to my parents' house." She cut in too quickly. "I need to tell them about Preston before they hear it from someone else. I'll come back Monday for my things. We can be adults about this." My parents' house. The words hung in the air like exhaust fumes. "Sure," I said. "Take your time." She looked at me like she expected a fight. When I didn't give her one, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door, heels clicking on the concrete floor. "For what it's worth," she said, pausing at the top of the stairs, "I did care about you, Silas. You're a good guy." "Yeah," I said. "That's my problem." The door closed behind her. I heard her car start. A Lexus I'd rebuilt the transmission on last spring and pull away into the rain. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, finishing that beer and thinking about nothing. Then I pulled out my phone and called downstairs to the garage. Tommy picked up on the first ring. "Boss, it's midnight." "I know what time it is. You still here?" "Yeah, me and Vic are buttoning up the Chevelle. What's up?" "Come upstairs. Bring the heavy-duty trash bags from the supply room." "How many?" "All of them." 20 minutes later, we'd stripped the place. Clothes, shoes, makeup, that collection of scented candles she kept buying. Everything went into contractor bags. No careful folding, no bubble wrap. Tommy and Vic worked fast and didn't ask questions, which is why I paid them well. While they hauled bags down to the curb, I found her planner wedged between the couch cushions, one of those expensive leather ones with her initials embossed on the cover. I almost tossed it with everything else, but something made me flip it open. The last 6 months were there in neat handwriting. Dinner with P, weekend with P, told P about parents' house rules. I flipped back further. There it was, 3 months ago, underlined. Tell Preston about strict father, religious household, old-fashioned rules about overnight guests. My chest went tight. Not with sadness, with something else. Something that felt like heat building in an engine block. She'd lied to him. Told him she lived with her strict religious parents. That's why he'd never come inside. Why they always met at hotels or his place in the city. Why she kept this whole double life running smooth as synthetic oil. Preston Whitmore didn't know his fiancée had been shacking up with a mechanic in an industrial loft for 2 years. He thought he was marrying a good girl who lived at home. I was about to close the planner when I saw tomorrow's entry. P coming to check on the Porsche. Noon. Maybe bring him to see the shop, my garage. I felt my lips pull back from my teeth in something that wasn't quite a smile. See, here's what Keeley didn't know, probably because she never paid attention when I talked about work. Preston Whitmore was a client. He'd dropped off a 1972 Porsche 911 8 weeks ago for a full restoration. $80,000 job, and he'd been calling every week, anxious as a kid on Christmas Eve, asking when his baby would be ready. The phone rang like it knew I was thinking about it. I checked the caller ID, Whitmore, Preston. I picked up. Vane Restoration. Silas, it's Preston Whitmore. His voice had that smooth, educated quality that came from private schools and never worrying about money. Sorry to call so late. I'm just excited about the Porsche. Any chance I could swing by tomorrow to check the progress? Tomorrow works, I said, keeping my voice level. Professional. Noon sound good? Perfect. Actually, I was thinking, I just got engaged this weekend. Would it be okay if I brought my fiancée? She doesn't know much about cars, but I'd love to show off the work you guys do. I looked at the trash bags piled by the curb. Rain already soaking through the plastic. Absolutely, I said. Bring her by. I'll make sure everything's ready for you. Great. Thanks, Silas. See you tomorrow. I hung up and stood there in the empty loft, listening to the rain and the distant sound of the city. Somewhere out there, Keeley was probably showing off her ring to friends, spinning some story about whirlwind romance with a sophisticated older man. Somewhere out there, Preston was probably looking at that ring too, thinking about the good girl who lived with her strict parents. Neither of them knew they were about to walk into my garage tomorrow. Neither of them knew what was coming. I pulled on my jacket and headed downstairs to the shop floor. The Porsche sat on the lift, gleaming under the work lights. Cherry red paint, custom cream leather interior, chrome so bright it hurt to look at. 3 months of meticulous work, every detail perfect. I walked over to my toolbox and pulled out a socket wrench. Time to make some adjustments. Sunday morning came in gray and cold. I was on the shop floor by 7, coffee going cold in a paper cup, staring at Preston's Porsche like it owed me money. Tommy showed up at 8, took one look at my face and said, "We working today?" "Just me. You can head home." He nodded and left without questions. That's the thing about good employees. They know when to disappear. I stood under that Porsche for 2 hours thinking, see, I'm not a murderous guy. I don't cut brake lines or loosen lug nuts. That's movie shit. And besides, I'm trying to make a point. But there are other ways to ruin someone's day with a car. I started with the interior, that custom cream leather Preston had special ordered from Italy. I swapped it out for stock tan seats from a parts car in the back. Still leather, still functional, but about 10 grand less impressive. He probably wouldn't even notice right away. Guys like Preston don't actually know cars, they just know price tags. Then I crawled under the chassis with a spray bottle I'd mixed up special. Milk, left to curdle for 3 days in a sealed container behind the building. I sprayed it deep into the AC vents, in the spots where he'd never be able to clean it out without tearing apart the whole dashboard. In a week, maybe 2, that Porsche would smell like something in it. Every time he turned on the air, he'd get a face full of rotten dairy. The smell would outlast their engagement, I figured. I was finishing up when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, photos posted. Check autogossip.net. I'd sent those photos to a local car scene blogger last night. Pictures of Keeley living here, sleeping in my bed, wearing my shirts in the morning. Nothing explicit, just enough to tell the story. The blogger had been happy to post them with a juicy caption. Local gold digger traded grease for green, Sources say this mystery woman was shacking up in an industrial loft while shopping for upgrade rings. I pulled up the site on my phone. There she was, clear as day in half a dozen shots. The comments were already rolling in. Someone had tagged her Instagram. The phone rang at 11:30. Keeley, I didn't answer. She called 3 more times. Then the text started. What did you do? Those photos are private. Take them down now. I texted back. Which parent's house are you calling from? She didn't respond to that. At 11:55, a silver Audi R8 pulled up outside the bay doors. $60,000 car that Preston probably bought off a showroom floor because it looked fast in movies. He climbed out wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking like a cologne ad. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. Mr. Whitmore, right on time. Please, call me Preston. He shook my hand with the grip of someone who'd never held anything heavier than a tennis racket. So, where's my baby? I led him into the shop. The Porsche was still on the lift, suspended 6 feet off the ground, chrome gleaming under the work lights. His face lit up like Christmas morning. Oh, she's beautiful. Can we bring her down? Sure. I walked over to the lift controls and hit the descend button, then released it too early. The hydraulics hissed, and the Porsche dropped 3 feet in half a second before I caught it again, stopping at maybe 6 inches from Preston's head. He stumbled backward with a yell, hands up like he could catch 2 tons of German engineering. Whoa, I said flatly. Sticky button. Sorry about that. He was pale, breathing hard. Jesus Christ, man. That's dangerous. I looked at him with the kind of expression you give a bug on your windshield. Heavy machinery can be unpredictable, Preston. That's why people like you pay people like me to handle it. Right, he said, smoothing down his sweater. Right. Sorry, I'm just excited. Where's your fiancée? Thought you were bringing her. She's waiting in the car. She's been having a weird morning. He glanced toward the door. Something on social media upset her. That's a shame, I said. You should invite her in. I'd love to meet her. Something in my voice made him pause, but that male pride kicked in. Can't have his woman think he's scared of the hired help. Yeah, let me go get her. I watched him walk out to the Audi. Through the bay door window, I could see them talking. Even from here, I could see Keeley shaking her head, trying to convince him to leave. But Preston kept gesturing toward the shop, insistent. Finally, she got out of the car. She was wearing big sunglasses and had her hair pulled back tight. The diamond on her hand caught the weak sunlight. She walked toward the garage like she was headed for the electric chair. When she stepped through the door and saw me standing there, she froze. I saw it all play out on her face. The recognition, the panic, the desperate calculation of what she could say or do. Preston came in behind her, oblivious, already walking toward his Porsche. Silas, this is my fiancé, Keeley. Keeley, this is Silas Vane. He's the best restoration guy on the East Coast. We've met, I said, keeping my voice casual. Haven't we? Your face looks really familiar. Keeley's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Preston looked between us. You have? Maybe I'm wrong, I said, scratching my jaw. You just have one of those faces, I guess. Lots of women look like you. Her eyes were screaming at me behind those sunglasses, begging me not to say it. Anyway, I said, turning to Preston, let's talk about your car. I lowered the Porsche properly this time and walked him around it, pointing out details he wouldn't understand. Keeley stayed by the door, rigid as rebar. She's got that scar on her knee, I said, pointing at a scrape on the lower panel. Must have happened before you brought her to me. Took me 3 hours to buff it out. Good eye, Preston said. Yeah, I noticed scars. I glanced at Keeley. You've got one too, don't you? Left knee. Fell off a bike when you were 12? Keeley went white. Preston frowned. How would you? Lucky guess, I said. She looks like a tomboy type. Was I right? Keeley nodded once, jerky. Weird, Preston said, but he was already distracted by the car again. I let him walk around it, pointing out upgrades I'd made. The whole time, Keeley stood there, watching me like I was a cobra in striking distance. Finally, Preston said, Looks perfect. What's the damage? I handed him the invoice. His face changed. $240,000? We agreed on 80. Cost overruns, I said. Parts were harder to source than expected. Custom work took longer. It's all itemized. This is insane. I'm not paying this. I shrugged. Then the car stays here. Like hell it does. He moved toward the driver's door. I'm taking it right now. I walked over to my Peterbilt wrecker, parked near the bay door. 12,000 pounds of rusted steel and diesel fury, with a tow arm that could lift a city bus. I climbed into the cab and fired her up. The engine roared like a living thing, all that torque rattling the windows. I pulled forward and blocked the bay door completely. Preston froze with his hand on the Porsche's door handle. "What the hell are you doing?" I climbed down from the cab, grabbed a tire iron from my toolbox, not threatening, just cleaning my fingernails with the tip of it, casual. "Nobody leaves until the account's settled, Preston. That's just business. You can't hold my car hostage." "It's not hostage. It's a lien. Look it up." I took a step closer. "See, I've got about 80 grand in parts and labor tied up in that machine. You drive off without paying. That's theft. And I don't call the cops for theft, Preston. I handle things myself." He looked at the tire iron in my hand, then at my face, then at the massive truck blocking the only exit. For the first time in his privileged life, Preston Whitmore realized he was alone in a building with a man who worked with his hands for a living, surrounded by heavy equipment and sharp tools. Keeley grabbed his arm. "Just pay him, Preston, please. Let's just go." $240,000? "We can afford it, please." Something in her voice made him look at her. Really look at her. The fear was too big for the situation. This wasn't just about money, but Preston was scared too, and scared men don't think clearly. He pulled out his phone and made the transfer, fingers shaking. My phone buzzed with the confirmation. "Pleasure doing business with you," I said, and moved the truck. Preston didn't even check the car. He just climbed in, fired it up, and backed out of the bay like the devil was chasing him. Keeley ran for the passenger side and jumped in before he could leave without her. I watched them peel out of the parking lot, tires squealing. Then I climbed back into my Peterbilt, that big, beautiful beast, and followed them. The Porsche was fast. I'll give Preston that. But speed means nothing on city streets flooded with yesterday's rain and clogged with Sunday traffic. My Peterbilt might have been 40 years old, but she had a Detroit diesel engine that could pull a house off its foundation, and she was tall enough that I could see over every car between us. Preston turned north onto Industrial Boulevard, probably heading for the highway. I stayed 3 car lengths back, close enough to keep him in sight, far enough to not spook him. Not yet. Traffic thinned out as we left downtown. The Porsche accelerated, weaving between slower cars. Amateur hour. He was driving scared, not smart. I pressed down on the accelerator and felt all that torque kick in. The Peterbilt surged forward, engine roaring, and suddenly I was right behind them. My high beams were at their eye level, filling their entire back window with white light. Through the rain-spotted glass, I could see both their heads jerk around. Keeley's arm pointing, Preston's shoulders tensing. He sped up. I sped up. The Porsche could have lost me on clear highway, but these roads were narrow, potholed, bordered by concrete barriers. Preston had to brake for every turn. I just downshifted and kept coming, that big chrome grille filling his mirrors like a wall of steel. We were doing 50 through a 35 zone. The Porsche's brake lights flashed as Preston took a corner too fast, fishtailing slightly on the wet asphalt. I took the same turn wide, feeling the Peterbilt's weight shift, tires biting down. I wasn't trying to catch them. I was herding them. Every turn I wanted, I gave them space to take. Every turn I didn't want, I crowded them, forcing them to choose the other direction. North toward the industrial district, east toward the warehouse section, left at the abandoned textile factory. Preston probably thought he was escaping. He had no idea I was driving him exactly where I wanted him to go. The address Keeley had given him, the parents' house. I'd found it in her planner, written in careful print. 1447 Mercer Street. Tell P this is home, religious parents, very private. We were 2 blocks away when Preston must have checked his GPS, must have realized he was being pushed towards something. He tried to turn south, but I swung the Peterbilt wide, blocking the entire intersection. He had to go straight. 1 more block. Half a block. The Porsche's brake lights blazed red as Preston slammed to a stop in front of 1447 Mercer Street, which was an empty lot, just cracked concrete and weeds, bordered by chain-link fence with a condemned warehouse beyond it. I pulled up behind them and stopped, engine idling, those high beams still flooding their car with light. I could see Preston's head whipping around, looking at the lot, then at his GPS, then at Keeley. Even through the rain and the glare, I could read his body language. The confusion, the anger starting to build. He was yelling. She was crying, hands up, trying to explain. Then his door opened and he got out, standing in the rain, staring at the empty lot, looking for a house that had never existed. Keeley got out too, grabbing his arm, but he shook her off. He was shouting something, but I couldn't hear it over the diesel rumble and the rain on my cab's roof. The sudden silence was louder than the noise had been. Preston turned and looked at my truck, really seeing it for the first time, seeing me in the cab, just watching them. Then he looked at Keeley, and I saw the pieces start to click together in his head. He got back in the Porsche. Keeley tried to follow, but he hit the locks. She pounded on the window. He sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Finally, he unlocked the door. She climbed in, soaked and shaking. They didn't drive away, though. Preston just sat there, probably making her explain. Probably hearing about the loft, about me, about the 2-year lie. After 10 minutes, the Porsche started moving again. Not fast this time. Just driving, aimless. Like a man with nowhere to go and all his plans in ruins. I followed at a distance. They drove for 20 minutes, circling, before Preston finally pointed the car back the way we'd come. Back south. Back toward downtown. Back toward my garage. I understood then. He was going to make her get her stuff. He was going to end this tonight, in the place where it started. My chest felt hot and tight, like a turbocharger building boost pressure. This was it, the final act. I followed them home. Part 4. The Curb. The Porsche pulled up in front of Vane Restoration at 9:47 p.m. The rain had stopped, but everything was still wet, reflecting the orange glow of the streetlights. My garage sat dark except for the security floods above the bay doors. And there, piled on the curb like trash bags on collection day, were all of Keeley's things. 30-some bags of her entire life, plastic already tearing on the corners, some of her clothes visible through the rips. I'd parked the Peterbilt back in its spot by the side entrance and walked around front. I wanted to see this. Preston got out first. He stood there in his soaked cashmere sweater, staring at those bags, then at the garage, then at the loft windows above. You could see the understanding wash over him like cold water. This was where she'd lived, not with strict religious parents, not in some nice suburban house, in a mechanic's loft above a garage that smelled like oil and metal. Keeley got out slowly, like a prisoner walking to execution. She saw the bags. She saw me standing in the garage doorway, arms crossed, backlit by the security floods. Preston turned to look at me. Our eyes met across 30 feet of wet pavement. I walked toward them. Not fast, not threatening, just steady, like I had all the time in the world. "Help me understand something," Preston said when I got close. His voice was strained, tight. "What exactly is going on here? You're a smart guy, Preston. I think you've figured it out. I want to hear you say it." I looked at Keeley. She was crying, mascara running, that big diamond still catching the streetlight. Then I looked back at Preston. "She didn't live with her parents," I said. "She lived here, with me, for 2 years, until yesterday morning, when she came home from Napa with your ring on her finger." Preston's face did something complicated. Anger, humiliation, disgust, all fighting for control. "You're lying. Ask her." He turned to Keeley. "Tell him he's lying." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Tell him," Preston shouted. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Preston. I was going to tell you." "When?" His voice cracked. "After the wedding? After I introduced you to my family as the good girl who lived at home? Jesus Christ, Keeley. It wasn't like that. What was it like then? Explain it to me. Explain how you've been sleeping with this." He gestured at me, couldn't find a word insulting enough. "While letting me think you were some innocent—" "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't finish that sentence." Preston rounded on me. "You don't get to talk. You don't get to—" He stopped, breathing hard. "Why? Why did you do this? Why not just let her go?" "I did let her go," I said. "I let her pack her bags and drive to your house and start her new life. But she lied to you, Preston. She lied to both of us, and I figured you deserved to know who you were marrying. That wasn't your call to make. Maybe not, but I made it anyway." For a second, I thought he might take a swing at me. His fists were clenched, his face was red, but Preston had probably never thrown a punch in his life, and he wasn't going to start with a guy who worked with iron and steel all day. Instead, he turned back to Keeley. "Get your stuff," he said. "Preston, please, get your stuff." She just stood there, crying harder. "Fine," he said. "I'll help you." He grabbed the nearest trash bag and threw it in the Porsche's tiny front trunk. It barely fit. He grabbed another one, tried to stuff it in the passenger seat. The bag split and clothes spilled onto the wet leather. "Preston, stop. You wanted this life," he shouted. "You wanted the car and the ring and the money. Well, here's what you're getting. Your clothes and trash bags and a mechanic's leftovers." He was losing it, throwing bags against the car, some of them splitting open, her life scattering across the pavement. A shoe, a makeup bag, a framed photo of them together. I just watched. This wasn't my show anymore. Finally, Preston stopped, breathing hard, staring at the mess he'd made. Then he looked at Keeley, really looked at her, and something in him just broke. "Get in the car," he said quietly. "What?" "Get in the car. I'll take you wherever you want to go. A hotel, a friend's, wherever. Keeley's face filled with desperate hope. Preston, thank you. Not because I forgive you, he cut her off. Because I'm not the kind of man who leaves someone on the street at night, even someone who lied to me for months. She moved toward the passenger door. Preston hit the locks. Actually, he said, I think you should figure this out yourself. You're good at that. Making plans, telling stories, lying to people who care about you. Preston, please don't do this. You did this, Keeley. You made your choice in Napa. You made it every day for 2 years when you came home to him. He pointed at me. Now live with it. He got in the car, started it. The custom engine I'd built purred to life. Keeley pounded on the window. Don't leave me here, please. Preston looked at her through the glass. Then he looked at me, standing in the garage doorway. For just a second, there was something in his expression that wasn't anger. It was understanding, man to man. We'd both been played. We'd both been the fool. Then he put the car in gear. Preston! Keeley screamed. He revved the engine and pulled away from the curb, tires squealing on wet asphalt. The acceleration threw up a wave of dirty water from the gutter that caught Keeley full in the chest, soaking her designer dress, her perfect hair, that diamond ring. The Porsche's taillights disappeared around the corner, that beautiful engine note fading into the city night. Keeley stood there dripping, surrounded by burst trash bags and scattered clothes. She looked like a drowned cat, like everything she'd built had collapsed in one night. Then she looked at me. I saw it in her eyes, the expectation, the assumption that I'd take her back, that I'd be the backup plan, the safety net she'd kept in place without even realizing it. She took a step toward me. Silas! I reached over and hit the button for the bay door. The heavy steel rollers started to descend with a grinding mechanical sound, loud in the quiet street. I stood there in the shrinking gap of light, looking at her face as she realized what was happening. Silas, wait! The door kept dropping. 2 feet of clearance. 1 foot. You can't just... 6 inches. I could barely see her now, just her feet on the wet pavement, surrounded by everything she owned in garbage bags. Silas! The door hit the concrete with a final, echoing clang. The kind of sound that's absolute. The kind that says, this is finished. I stood there in my garage, in the dark, listening to her pound on the door, listening to her scream my name. The sound got quieter, then stopped. I heard her footsteps moving away, heard her crying, heard the city night swallow her up. I walked upstairs to my loft. It was empty now, stripped clean, just my furniture and my life. No more lies hanging in the air, no more secrets hiding in the corners. I grabbed a fresh beer from the fridge, walked to the window, and looked down at the street. The trash bags were still there. Keeley was gone. I raised the bottle in a silent toast to the empty street, to the pile of trash, to the last 2 years of my life that were now sitting on the curb waiting for Monday morning pickup. Then I turned away from the window and sat down in my chair, listening to the city hum and the garage settle and the sound of my own breathing in the quiet.